This is the new Makita HS011G. And this is the blade that goes on it. Is this the biggest cordless circular saw in the world? When it comes to features on a circular saw, this tool is going to be hard to beat. It's almost perfect really, and that's without even turning it on. If this thing has decent power, this is going to be a great saw. I'll show you a couple of things before I put the blade on. Where your blade goes, the arbor, so that's a 16mm shaft there, but has this flange thing. That makes it 30mm, so that's what it comes with in New Zealand. Comes with a 30mm bored blade, and on the other side, flip it over, and you get a 1-inch. Also, before we put the blade on, it's got a feature that's only on 2 other tools, as far as I'm aware, from Makita in the cordless ranges, and that's on the 18V 235mm saw and on the HS011G, which is coming out about the same time as this in most of the world, and that is a 235mm saw also. This saw, of course, is 270. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but look at this. Woohoo! Over by your left hand there is a lever so that you can open your guard up to prevent it catching on the edge of timber when you start your cut. Basically every Makita saw needs that because that is an ongoing issue. When I first announced that Makita were making this tool, you may have heard me say this. What have I told you? Makita were releasing a top handle 260mm 10¼ circular saw and has a cutting depth of 97mm. Oh, so close again. They got a couple more millimeters than they managed to get out of the rear handle one, which has a cutting depth of 95mm. But if only they could get to 100, it would be perfect. Maybe there'll be enough space in here that you can stick a 270mm blade on. If you can track one of those down, they do exist. You can get a 270mm blade on it, then you'll get that 100mm depth of cut, and you can cut straight through 4x4 posts with it. And it looks like they listened in this part of the world anyway. I'm not sure if you're going to get this saw with a 270mm blade, but in New Zealand and Australia, I do believe, and the UK, you're going to get this tool with a 270mm blade. That's 10 5/8 of an inch. And why is that so significant over it being the 260? Well, as you just heard, this will now cut a 4x4 100x100 post in one pass. Not too many circular saws can boast that feature. And that's just the first of many cool things about this tool. Made and cut, H4 treated, Pinus radiata, 100x100, or 4 inches of pressure treated lumber if you're in the States. Let's do this. Yeah. Have you noticed something down the bottom here? That's right, there's no front on this saw here. Or side, depending on how you want to look at it. Most saws have a solid piece coming along the front here, like this, and that means you can run them along a board or a straight edge of some sort. But this one hasn't got it. Nothing there. So you can get up pretty close, which is nice. But it does actually come with a front, but an adjustable one. You can move this one from this position all the way out. That provides more stability when you bevel your saw, which is nice. And also, when you flip it over, that's right, flip it over, it becomes your straight edge rip guide. That is so cool. And because it locks in front and back, it's good and solid. So yeah, I'm looking forward to using this to rip some timber because I do have a lot of timber to rip. So I've got a couple of 300x50s here. That's 12x2 or 2x12. These are dressed though, so they're only 45mm thick. And I am going to rip them in half, straight up the guts. But I'm not going to do them individually. I'm going to do them one on top of the other. And this amount of timber here with current pricing is worth about $12,500. And this saw is hopefully going to be fantastic for that because I can rip, well, 2 bits in one go. So these 2 pieces of timber are 4.8 meters long. I don't know what that is in feet. Maybe I'll put it here. And I'm gonna rip them starting with the track on the timber, and then when the track runs out, well, I'll just carry on hopefully. See how she goes. Still not sold? Okay. Well, if cutting through two 2-inch boards at the same time doesn't do it for you, let's take a look at some of the other features. Let's have a look at the bevel on this thing. So, looking at the front here, we have a dial. This dial sets your stop for your bevel. So we have a positive stop here at 22.5, or you can set it to 45. Pretty standard, right? But look at the size of that number. That's 60 degrees. And just wait until you see how deep this thing can cut at 45 and 60. Hopefully you're going to be impressed. The saw is set to a 45-degree bevel, and this piece of timber is 3 inches or 75 millimeters thick. Can it go all the way through in one pass? I didn't cut it too straight and it rubbed on the blade a bit, but it did do 75 mil deep. That's pretty awesome. We're now set to 60 degrees. Hello, can't you go? $55 millimeters. Awesome. You can easily get through 2-inch thick timber on a 60 degree. Mind you, it doesn't matter if you're cutting anything smaller than 100 by 100 post, because you can just do a bevel cut like this. But not only does it go to 60, if we flip it around here and take a look at the base, it does -1 as well. If you loosen off front and back and you push in these two little tangs here, saw just dropped down, we're now beveling at reverse 1 degree, -1. Now many of you will be familiar with that function from track saws, you know, plunge saws usually have that on a Makita. So hang on a minute, is this a track saw as well? It most certainly is. Take a look at that. This has the groove embedded into the track just like a plunge saw. No need for an extra adapter or anything, built into the base, and you still get that 101 mil cut, and they managed to get that in the base as well. You won't get that 101 when you're on the track, of course. You'll lose about 4 millimeters, but very awesome feature. Something that Makita seem to be bringing out more and more now on tools. The HS011G, which I reviewed a few weeks ago, that also has this, and that's a 185mm saw. Track saws aren't just plunge saws anymore. And just like a Makita plunge saw, it has these two little washers on a sliding switch here that go into your rail to help prevent your saw from toppling over when you're doing beveled cuts. And there's two dials here that just help dial in your tool and get it running smoothly, so there's no chatter when you're doing your cut. Are you convinced yet? Well, it's also AWS compatible. Has a dust chute that locks in different positions. Has onboard tool storage for when you need to change your blade. The ironic thing is, you don't seem to need that little lever. Has an RPM of 3,500 and weighs just 4.75 kgs. That's without the battery in the blade. So, what do you reckon? That's not too bad, eh? But, can it cut? That is, of course, the most important thing. And I think the first cut for this tool should be a 4x4 post, don't you think? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm happy so far. That sounded faster than I thought it was going to sound at only 3,500 RPM. By comparison, the HS011G, the 165mm or 6.5-inch saw, that runs at 5,500 RPM. and it's got a slow speed of 4,100, so even at slow speed is quicker than this. But the bigger the blade, the slower you got to do things, else shit could get messy. Now I've currently got a 2 amp hour battery sitting on it for that little test, but Makita recommend the 5 and 8 amp hour batteries for this tool. This is a 2 amp hour battery that is half depleted. Seems pretty full on. What about a 5 amp hour that's fully charged? Oh yeah, you can hear a difference there. 2 amp hour back on. Definitely a difference. Boy, there's a lot of air coming out the top of that dust chute. Let's test the depth of cut, because I think Makita have sold themselves short here. I reckon you can get more than 101mm with a saw. As I suspected, 104mm. So does that mean we can cut through a 100 by 100 post on a track or rail? Bang on 100mm. This is gonna be close. Have Makita made the best saw ever? Oh no! Look at that, right on the edge. So close. 99.5mm. Look at that, it's basically just the fibers being pushed away from the edge. It's so close, it's half cut. If I rotate this bit of wood 90 degrees, I think we'll find that this is slightly shorter than this way. Woohoo! What about if this thing kicks back on you? Could be a bit mean, eh? It's a big saw. So now I'm going to test, or attempt to test, the anti-kickback feature. There's the kickback control for you. Right, stall test time, one of my favourite tests of any tool review, and as the name suggests, I am going to try and stall this tool. I'm going to do that by driving it over and over again into a 4x4. This is something I did with the rear handled saw, so it'll be interesting to see whether this is similar, better, worse. Felt a lot better than the rear handle to me. Well, it's been about 3 weeks, I think, that I've been using this tool, and the blade's well worn in now, and she's got a few battle scars because early on in its life she so it's just fallen from the height of this top of the sawhorse here to the concrete, which is just over 1 meter. I think the battery took the initial brunt of the fall on the corner there, but it has left a few marks. Oh, damn. Poor saw. Hopefully it hasn't knocked anything out of whack. And hopefully... Phew! What else is there to tell you about this saw? It is a pearler. It is a cracker. It's a stonking great saw. This saw's been my favourite 40 volt saw for a while, just because of its features, even though this 165 is the one that I use the most. But I think I have a new love because this saw is just fantastic. I think it's my new favourite. 005G is going to have to take the back seat to this one. And does it mean that with the 165 and this new 270mm saw. Do I really need the 185? The HS011G? It only cuts to the same depth as the 165. If I want to rip stuff now, I'm going to grab this, so I could probably get rid of that. Let me know what you think down below. Have you had the choice of the 4 different saws? 125mm, 165, 185, 270? What combination would you keep? So wrapping up, it is still on the 5 amp hour battery. I put on it right from the start of the testing of this video. So as you can see, 2 bars left. So up to 50% of the battery life still there. What is with my lighting? Why is there so much reflection? Give me a second. That's a little bit better. I'll get my lighting rig sorted out one of these days. So like I say, it is a great saw. I love this particular feature, even though it's not really a feature, but it's kind of cool anyway. Love that when it's on a 45-degree bevel like that, the tool still stands up. If you're worried about the line of sight when you're using this thing, having to look over the tool, doesn't matter. There's a light that shines through here, and you get a really good shot down through there at your line when you're cutting, so it's pretty good actually. But if I have to complain about something, and I've got to complain about something, I can't gush over it too much, else it's going to make some of you sick. So complaints, I'll give you 2. Where the blade lines up for your straight cut, it's a little bit off, It's not really zero there. It's hard to know where your line is gonna come. You really need to line your line up with the blade, because this here is a bit, it's a bit vague. It doesn't line up quite right. It's going to be different every time you change a blade. Different curved blades, this is going to be different. So not great there on your 0-degree line. And my only other real complaint is that when you are using this as a rip guide, you can't get it to go to 150 wide. I wish that just made this a little bit bigger, so you could rip a 300 wide piece of timber straight down the middle. But unfortunately you can't do that with this. So in summary, plenty of power, plenty of features, great for compound miter cuts. Compound miter cuts with just a handheld skilly like this is brilliant. You can just do so many different cuts that I've never been able to do with any other saw, not a cordless saw. And that makes it so versatile and so useful on the job site. Although I was a bit miffed it couldn't cut through the piles that I was doing, because they're 125mm and this only does 104. So yeah, Makita, I want a 126mm depth of cut saw. Okay, that's your next challenge. Can you make that the HS011G? I'll be really appreciative. So thanks for watching another one of my vids. There'll be some links below if you want more info about this thing, you want to know where you can buy one, that sort of stuff. I'll see if I can find some places. I'm not sure how many places it's available yet. I think it's out in New Zealand, Australia, UK, other parts of Europe. Not out in the US yet. I think it's out in Canada. That's right, Canada. I got mine from Handy Hardware here in Auckland in New Zealand, and I will put a link to that down below as well. And I'll see you on another video shortly. Let me know which 40-volt tools you want to see reviewed too. There's so many coming up. So let me know which ones you want to see first down there, and I'll see you on another one next week. Cheers, guys. Certainly a contender for #1 Makita tool of 2022. Although the 40-volt planer, metal cutting saw, and new reciprocating saw are all about to come out, so stay tuned.